Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the Mount, a podcast from the campus of Mount Perrin Christian School. I'm your host, Steve Kyle. With me, again, Viola Lucier.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Viola. Welcome to this episode on service. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about service and here at Mount Perrin. Two great guests on today. One been on before. And a big part of Christian life here at Mount Perrin, specifically in the area of service. Jean Ann Murphy's on the episode.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you back on as well. And we're going to talk a lot about service. And then a first-time guest, but when you talk about service, even from, I remember when I got here, because you've been now, Angie, with Mission 127. We'll talk about that, about how long. But we've got, parent, current, parent, alum parent, heavily involved in serving in our community. Miss Angie Smith is here with us.
Well, thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So glad to have you here. And for people who may not know, and there are people that are going to know, because we have most of the people who listen are Mount Perrin people, and there, no doubt, there are going to be ties. Oh, I know Angie Smith. My child went to school with and or currently still goes. So really quick, a quick snapshot of who is Angie Smith for our listeners.
So I've been here since 2007. I think the math is like 18 years, and we've had 4 kids at Mount Perrin, 3 sons that have graduated. My daughter is going to be a senior, and my oldest son has come back as on staff. So we're super excited about Carter coming back to his roots here at Mount Perrin. But been married, my husband Keith, for 32 years.
No, you guys look 32.
Well, we were babies when we got married.
Yeah, you
so we
were.
grew up
Goodness.
together.
Did you really?
Well, I mean, because we were so
Literally,
young getting married.
Yeah, you're right.
We've grown up together. So been together longer than we've been apart. So I won't
love
tell you my
that.
age, but
22.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
And then we have just a wonderful dog, Winchester, who's the love of all of our
He
lives.
is so cute.
Yeah.
He's well known in the
precious.
neighborhood and in Marietta, and
So
He greets me on all my walks.
Yes.
you mentioned, are you a Marietta person? This area? Did you grow up in this area?
I actually grew up in East Cobb.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. I was the first full graduating class of Pope High School.
Oh,
wow. You're a Pope
Yeah,
Greyhound.
I'm a Pope Greyhound.
How'd you
Yeah.
meet your hubby?
Youth camp. We were
That's a good place.
counselors at youth camp.
What
it's
a
a great place.
It is. It is. People are like, where am I? I'm like, you got to go to the right places.
yes.
Church,
Yes.
youth camps. That's where you meet them.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. That is awesome. And I don't know Winchester. But I bet I know what he's named after. I don't know. I feel like,
you
I love
got
it.
it. You
I
got
love
it.
it too. That is,
You got
I
it.
like, this is my dog Remington
Yes.
and Ruger, and
Sig.
Smith and Wesson.
Yes.
They're twins.
Yeah. But
He's very gentle, though.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
someone
so
tried to
gentle.
rob the house, he'd be like, "Hey, can I help
know.
you? What are you
You
doing?
would like
Can I
this
come
dog.
see you?"
Can I
He-
help
Very,
you?
very friendly dog.
He shows you around to
He
stuff.
does. He
Like he's
does.
showing you, oh, you want to know where they hide the jewelry? It's in the
Yes.
safe behind the
Yes.
picture.
Come follow me.
Yeah. Well, Angie, great to have you on. But you're so more than just that too. We're going to be talking about service. You also serve as the executive director of Mission 127.
Yes.
And how long you been in that role?
Well, I've grown into this role really since I was in high school, but I've been the executive director for the past 5 or so years.
Got it. And so we're going to talk more about Mission 127, and we're going to get into the partnership, how just the amazing work they do, and what your role is in that. In just a second, we're going to begin by talking a little bit about service. If you're a Mount Perrin person, as part of our mission statement, it's a priority. It's what we focus on. Is our mission statement, hoping and desiring that all things we do are missional. But a big part of that, it ends with this idea that we are preparing servant leaders, not just leaders, but servant leaders to honor God, love others, and walk in truth. So service is a big component of that. We have lots of organizations that do service. But of course, a priority is serving. And Jean Ann, obviously on staff, we work, obviously a big priority is Christian life and service, which is where we've talked about this, but talk a little bit about how the perspective of service is for us when we talk about service here at Mount Perrin in ways that we're creating that.
Well, as you mentioned, our mission statement is to prepare servant leaders, and you can't prepare a servant leader unless you're actually serving. And so it's really important to us to create different opportunities throughout the year to serve. And I think it's also very important to create opportunities where we have our staff and our families and our students all serving together. I think it's important for students to see that it's a priority in the lives of our faculty and staff and families outside of Mount Perrin. So once you graduate, we don't want you to just stop being a servant leader because you're no longer a student here. We want you to continue to serve in your community. It's what Christ has commanded us to do.
Yeah. And again, you guys, I'm not a parent any longer of a Mount Perrin student. All three of you are. And I mean, Viola, you've got two girls here. You've got two boys here. You've got one daughter left here, Angie. Service important to you. I mean, you desire that and want that for your kids as well, right?
So I do. And actually, I'm glad you said something, Jeannie, about just like how everyone has to be involved in this, because I want it to be a mentality. And I don't want it to be out of obligation. And never out of, okay, well, I have to hit this many hours because that's what so-and-so said. It should be where you are always looking around to say, like, oh, there's something on the ground. How can I pick that up? Right. Service doesn't have to be through an organization that has, the correct IRS forms and all that other kind of stuff. Service is an everyday,
it should be who
all
we
day.
are.
Yes.
And we're living in a society right now that is really internally
Hallelujah,
focused.
girl.
And so Jesus, though, was other focused.
Yeah.
And so really as Christians, it should be a priority for us to look outside of ourselves. But it's not something that is innate. And so we have to model it for our students.
You didn't teach a preschooler, how to be selfish, right?
Right.
You didn't teach that. So that is just natural in us to be selfish, to want our way, and to not be others focused. And so, but Christ is the pattern. He didn't come to be served, but to serve.
Y'all, he washed feet.
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've ever done that, but I have done that on a mission trip, and it's not pleasant.
Right.
Yeah.
It is service.
Well, and that's, what I love about Mount Perrin so much. I'm reading a really great book right now about by Trudy Cathy White, and it's called Building a Legacy That Lasts, Preserving Your Family Values. And she's really challenging you to look at, like, what are your family values? And one of them that I've identified in my family, articulated, but it's really been a lifelong pattern of when I was a child, and I know it was in my mother's life, is serving and being generous. And so this school and all that we do and the focus on preparing servant leaders and the opportunities that they have to serve really is reinforcing those values that we have in our home, because not many of us will be professional, our vocation will be a professional ministry, but we all have opportunities to serve, and we need to bring that passion of serving, being generous, practicing the golden rule in our places of business one day. And so I love that our kids become fluent in that here.
Yeah, well, I think all three of you really touched on this. It's really important if you're listening, and a lot of you are parents. This is not just the key is going to be, are we modeling that kind of service? The downside is we're like, great, I got my kid to school that they're serving, and I'm going to drop them off, and they're going to serve, and I'm going to pick them back up, and I'm going to, believe it or not, that doesn't actually do a great job in fostering it until we're shoulder to shoulder, until they understand that serving isn't just something I do or my parents, one day I'll drop my kids off. No, one day I'll serve with them. And I think if we're going to do that, they have to understand, even if, Angie, as you mentioned, that you don't have to be in full-time ministry to do that. You can do whatever you want, but still show up for what we do. And so at Mount Perrin, we're trying to create environments like that. Of course, all our service organizations, NHS, or I say service, or these are, they offer platforms, Key Club, Beta Club, NHS, and even some of the Spanish Honor Society and some of these other ones are creating opportunities to serve. We, of course, have Serve Saturdays, which once a month we're partnering for families to serve together. We offer the food pantry nights. That's with partnering with MUST.
With the MUST Marietta Sixth Grade Academy Food Pantry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to mention, sometimes students do show up to serve because they need hours for one of these organizations, and that's not always a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's really cool for me is when I have a student show up to, let's say, like a food pantry night, and they're there because they need the hours, but then afterwards they're like, wow, That was
Right.
amazing. I had no idea that there were people in our community who needed food
Mhm.
that lived this close to me. And then they all of a sudden it's clicked. And so
Yeah.
they're asking me when the next
Yeah.
food pantry night is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, for me, what I'm doing now, I won't tell you my age, but it was something that I began serving when I was in high school.
Mm.
And so this has become my vocation. But if my mother had never been in a job that allowed me to be exposed to need, a dream began in my heart in high
Yeah.
school. And so these service, I know, because I've had kids that have had the required service hours. But, you fake it till you make it.
Mhm.
And God takes our apathy
Mhm.
and turns it into a passion.
Yeah. That's
Well, and I
awesome.
will say one thing too. Beginning with the class of 2027, we now have 20 hours that each
That's
class has to
awesome.
get.
So
Yeah.
excited
And they
about
can
that.
serve it in any way. And it's actually been really fun to see what some of the kids want to do because there's not like a specific requirement or you have to serve at this particular place. It's been really interesting to see where they will go.
Yeah. And
having
and what they do. And
that
hopefully
carte
begin to
blanche.
understand that service looks more, it doesn't just look one particular way.
Correct.
It
It
doesn't
doesn't.
have to be, well, I'm at this place that does service. It can take lots of different perspectives.
Well, and I will say the one thing I have thoroughly enjoyed about the Family Serve Days, because I'm been here. This is my 9th year, 10th year. So I remember when we used to have all the buses, and the buses all launched 40,
Crazy.
50 buses.
Logistics.
We are at places that will push us past where we're comfortable, and that's okay. But from that, I have learned so much just about how to talk to people, how to make them, they are still people, and so you might feel uncomfortable in certain situations, but that's where you need to be. And
Yeah.
that's why you need to lean on God during those times.
Yeah.
It is allowing us to be connected to people that are our neighbors
Mm-hmm.
who live in our community, but that are different than us, and allowing us to build intentional friendships that change us
Right.
as well as them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So Family Serve Day, you mentioned it. Let's go there, and then we're gonna hop into this partnership, one of our partnerships that we have with Mission 127. So every year in the spring we do a big. It's been something we've done as a school, this service day, before even I got here, and we made a transition to make it a more family focused, Family Serve Day. And where it kind of lives today. So every year, Jean Ann, just give us a snapshot. What is, for someone who may not know, and I'm guessing most people know, Family Serve Day. What is that in the life of Mount Perrin?
So Family Serve Day, and I think one of the coolest things is that our school puts this as a priority. And so we close
Yes.
down school essentially for the last Friday in April. And we go out into the community and we have our students, staff, and parents serving together. And so typically we're serving at around 60 different locations, and people can choose where they want to go. We have all sorts of things. We have food distribution. We have after school, underprivileged children places to go. We have senior living centers. We have all sorts of things. So families get to choose where they serve, and then we just spend the morning or the afternoon, depending on what you sign up for, serving. For me, I think it's such a great opportunity for us to maybe find something new, somewhere new we didn't know existed. Some people like to go stack books at Books for Africa in a warehouse. I mean, there are just so many different opportunities, and I think it makes us aware of different needs in our community.
Mm-hmm.
But my hope is that it fosters a love for an organization that maybe now your family went, they had a really great experience, and I'll have families call and say, hey, do you know what they're up to this summer? Can you put me in touch? I want to continue serving, or I want to financially contribute. So there's so many ways that just this one day of service. But I did do some quick math this morning. So we had around 1,400 people on our Sign Up Genius signed up to serve.
Wow.
And I would say the average site is around 3 hours. Some people serve for longer than that. So that's 4,200 hours
That's
Wow.
awesome.
of work that's getting done in that
Incredible.
morning by the Mount Perrin community. And I think that's really special.
It is. Love the day. It's a great day as we do that. And one of course, our ministry partners, not just on Family Serve Day, but kind of throughout the year in a couple different ways, is Mission 127. which, of course, I already mentioned Angie Smith is the executive director of. First, though, I want to hear a little bit about, for someone who might not know, because I think people are going to be surprised. They're like, oh, I know exactly what that is. Like, I didn't know it was Mission 127. And they're going to be aware of this. So give us a quick synopsis. What is Mission 127? What are the different, because there's not just one, the different ways in which you guys are doing amazing work in this area and in our community.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, our Mission 127, our name comes from James 127, which says, true religion is this, is that you would take care of the widows and orphans and that you would keep yourself but from being defiled by the world. And so for us, the modern day widow and orphan are single parents. It's senior adults. It is the folks in society that have the smallest voice. And so we try to stand in the gap with them, and our tagline is transforming lives. And so we do that by connecting neighbors with resources. We work in under-resourced communities. Our deepest roots are here in Cobb, that we kind of began working back in 1989. And we also stretch out to Augusta and Gainesville. But we do that with after-school programs and summer camp. So we're about youth and children development. We say that we want to make disciples and make ready for the marketplace. And so we want to overcome trauma and poverty. With senior adults and families and single parents, we are working to intentionally build community and connect neighbors. So we get to do that in so many ways. And I work with the most amazing group of people who are mission-minded. And so it's just energizing being a part of it.
Do you have any idea how many people currently that you guys, like, if you had to estimate students, senior adults, single families, do you have it's roughly, say, in our program we have on average? Again, I was just curious.
So we have 6 after-school programs that we call adventure centers. And so we have roughly 250 students participating that every week after school. And so we'll have the equivalent, about that many, at 6 weeks of summer camp this summer.
Wow.
So where schools have 180 days, we are on every day after school, and we're also on when there's breaks. Like, a lot of our kids don't have the means to travel on fall break and spring break. So we're open. So we had 188 days of programming last year, plus 6 weeks of summer camp. It's really cool. We did the math several years ago. And so if we have a kid, so this is kindergarten through 5th grade, if we have a kid that joins us in kindergarten, stays through 5th grade, participates summer throughout the school year, we get the equivalent of about 90-plus years of Sunday school.
Wow.
So talk about an opportunity to influence. It's massive. It's massive. And we have a similar mission statement. Matter of fact, we borrowed it, thanks Dr. Tilley, for our adventure centers. We want to honor God, prepare servant leaders to love others and walk in truth.
Yeah.
And so we
sounds
do.
very similar.
It's awesome. Yeah, it sounds very similar, right?
Yeah.
And then
sounds
Family
familiar.
Serve Day, I think we had 6 different teams. I think we had
7. We
7
added
this year.
another one. We were super psyched about that.
So we did 4 adventure centers and 3 senior centers just on that one day.
Yeah.
So what a blessing.
And so we had over 100 Mount Huron volunteers come spread out across 7 locations.
That's
and
amazing.
It was so impactful and so much fun. And our folks are still talking about it. We have it. Our team has it on our calendar for 2025, and we just super psyched about that.
Well, so it's not just Family Serve Day where we're partnering with you. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about how this flows throughout the school year?
Yes. So we thankfully are the beneficiaries of Beta Club and NHS, and they send students to us in our after-school program who take time one-on-one to tutor with kids. Help. That's a big need. We have a lot of academic and learning loss, and so we have volunteers that come in regularly from high school that participate. A super fun one-time event each year is in August. We do an amazing luncheon for all these senior adults, about 500 senior adults. And we have the football and baseball team who come in to dance with these senior ladies, and they're wearing their chapel ties and jackets.
I love it.
They're amazing.
It's so cute.
Yeah,
It
I've
is.
been and got to see firsthand as I've in person, watched our team interact, and it is one of the coolest things to watch in person, to see the pictures are great, but when you see the conversations and you see the faces of maybe it's the ladies light up when they get to, I got this 17-year-old guy.
Well, we're hoping to add the cheerleaders this year, and we're at the location's even closer to Mount Perrin, so we're hoping more. But I feel like a proud mama with all these Mount Perrin students coming, and they don't stand on the wall. They engage. They're polite. They're respectful. They really are the highlight. Matter of fact, I think a couple years ago when the baseball team was in the state playoffs, some of the groups sent a big cookie cake congratulating them. So that it is
That is so sweet.
It's a relationship that it's not just it's not transactional.
Yeah, it's awesome. And when you think about that, you begin to understand, that this is this. Now, of course, this is one partnership we have with Mission One, a big one, because I don't know if there's anybody that maybe we send more people to any other ministry throughout the year because of our partnership. I know you guys do the big Christmas. It's like
our
store.
Christmas market.
Yeah.
And so at Christmas time, as a parent, you want to be your kid's hero. You want to be the one to select the toys your kid wants and to provide them. And if you're struggling to make ends meet and you can't afford a present, that is hard. For families struggling financially, Christmas is one of the most devastating times of the year. And so we have wonderful volunteers like Mount Perrin who collect toys for us, and we have a market where families that are financially struggling, we get these referrals from ministry partners here in Cobb, and they can come and buy for like 80% off retail prices. A $25 Target Lego is going to cost $5 at our market.
And I love that philosophy because you're empowering
yes,
families.
You are.
Yeah.
And so the families walk in there kind of not sure what this is about, heavy, closed off, not really talking much. And they walk, and we have dozens of Mount Perrin students who come and volunteer. We have to have 200 volunteers a day, and they're personal shoppers, and they're carrying packages to people's cars. And so we have families come in there, heavy countenance, and walk out of there dancing. And so Mount Perrin students are and families are part of providing toys, and they're a part of serving that day. It's my favorite day of December.
I love that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool, and to know that they're, it's not. Sometimes there's this weird stigma of just getting free stuff.
Yeah.
They get to go out and actually
It's
buy
empowering.
it. It is, yeah, and
And there's dignity.
I love that.
Dignity.
It's dignity.
Yes.
We all were created in the image of God.
Yeah.
And so we have an inherent dignity. And seeing that in each other is really important, and breaking barriers down. And I'm so excited. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking guests that come, and so we've had Spanish Honor Society students there helping, and so
that's great. So, and I think you've kind of done this a little bit already in telling this the difference, obviously, that it makes. We're not obviously the only people that volunteer to serve with you.
Yes.
Lots of other places and students do, and certainly Mission 127 is not the only place in which we volunteer. You guys are one really great one, but it obviously is significant. The work that these students do to come do makes an immense difference in the life of the Mission One. It allows you to maybe get more done than you could have gotten done.
Absolutely. We go further faster together.
Yeah, and that's important. And when you look at that verse, Mission 127, and I had learned a few years ago. So I remember when I was first introduced to the ministry. My question always is, why is it there's a lot of 127s in the Bible. What are we talking about? And when you consider that, I mean, there's so many discussions about the role of government in meeting needs. And here's the simple truth and reality of that is as believers, we're called to do exactly what you're doing, what Mission 127 does. That's to meet the needs of the orphans, the widows, those needs. It really wasn't even supposed to be the job of any kind of government to do so. And in no way am I saying that we shouldn't be, and I'm not trying to make a political stand, but as Christ followers, imagine if that's what we all did.
Right.
We all saw the importance of that within our churches and in these ministries,
and
how different it would be.
When they're students, and it grows
Yeah.
Yeah.
once they've seen us.
And in homes. and
Homes.
in homes.
That's got to be
where-
the biggest thing.
where they see it. So, last, when you talk about service, Jean Ann, Angie, any last words before we wrap up today on just service in general? Anything you'd like to say, Angie, to people who may be listening? Parents. We have non-parents that listen as well. That they're not Mount Perrin. They're just people who stumbled on this podcast and are like, "Oh, Viola."
Hey, guys.
But anything you want to share?
Well, I just think service is so important. This is something that I was raised as a child, and that my mother was raised as a child. But that is Christ came to serve, not to be served. And that is a pattern that we need to instill in our families. And you don't have to go on a foreign mission trip. You don't have to go on another city mission trip to serve. There are neighbors in your community who need your assistance. But when you do it, be prepared that you're going to be impacted too. You are going to be blessed.
Yeah.
We have a lot to share with each other, and there are more things that unite us and that we're similar than that divide us, and that we'll learn that when we get out and serve and meet somebody who's different than us.
Yeah. Wow. Great. So service, when you think about that, of course, whether it's at Mount Perrin or any place, service isn't, Jeannie, I think you mentioned this, it's not if you feel up to it or it's kind of a command. We're commanded
right.
to serve others. It was modeled by Christ to serve other
Correct.
people.
We're doing it out of obedience. And listen, I mean, I love to take my kids to serve, but sometimes they don't want to get out of bed. But sometimes
Right.
we just have to do that on Saturday morning.
What-
You know,
there's blessings in obedience.
Correct.
We have to be obedient. But I will say I've never regretted a day where I made everyone get out of bed and go serve on a Saturday morning. I've never regretted that at the end, and I don't really think my kids have either.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Great.
completely.
So if you're listening and you're like, man, I've really been dropping the ball on service. Here's the great thing is you can start right now,
absolutely.
immediately, whether it's through a planned, program that Mount Perrin may be offering, or you've heard from Mission 127. I am certain they would love to have people.
We have opportunities right now.
Yeah, exactly. To get plugged in, whether it's winter, spring, summer, or fall, you can plug into amazing ministries like Mission 127. So, Angie, thank you so
Thank
much
you for
being
having
on
me.
here. Jean Ann, thank you for being on
you.
our service episode, and thank you all for listening to another episode of From the Mount.